He's like, also, by the way, peace, I'm leaving.
Yeah, like, I just left my position in the drug game, and here, you can take over it. You go ahead and sling this boat, homie. This is just as easy for you to fucking sling that boat, that angel dust, that sherm stick, that water, that wet, that whatever. It should be just as easy for you to fucking get rid of this as it is for you to get rid of them bootleg cassette tapes. So have a good time, and P.S., somebody will be around to pick up the money for it. Hello everyone, and thank you for listening to Amigas, the movie reviews podcast where we ask that fundamental question that so many others leave out. Do I give a shit?
Do I really do?
Do I give a shit about these people? Do I give a shit about the story? Do I give a shit about what is happening to them? And today we're going to talk about a movie that we give a shit about, that we think you should give a shit about. Today we're going to talk about a little movie called Arkansas. Arkansas is a 2020 movie, and it's a good movie, and this movie starts out with an interesting quote from an author named Charles Portis from a book called The Dog of the South, where it says a lot of people eventually leave Arkansas, but they always come back because they just can't quite achieve escape velocity. And then shortly after that, it goes into the narrator's voice, who is narrated by our main character in this movie, Kyle. And Kyle says, a lot of people in life, they just have to have this philosophy on life. They just have to have this idea, the justification for what they're doing. I've never really needed that. I've always thought that philosophy was just for people that felt guilty about going after what they really wanted and didn't know how to do it, basically. And so this movie starts out with Kyle sitting in a room by himself, and Kyle is waiting for a guy to show up and pick up a duffel bag full of contraband products. And while he's sitting there waiting for that to happen, all of a sudden there is a knock on his door, and there's this creepy guy out his door, and he starts looking out the peephole in his door. And as he's looking out the peephole, he starts to see the lock starts to turn on this door. This guy puts some lock picks in, and he starts to turn it. So Kyle does a very intelligent thing. He steps back from the door, and as soon as the door opens a little bit, he yanks it open, he grabs the guy by the hair, and he puts his fucking face on the floor and shoves him down. He ties him up, and he goes, "Alright, look, motherfucker, where's your weapon?" He goes, "I don't have a weapon." He's like, "Yeah, well, somebody that fights like you probably should have a weapon, especially if you're coming up in here doing this shit, okay?" He ends up tying him up, throwing him in a closet, and sitting back on the couch. Not too long after that, there is another knock on the door, and it's this guy, Colin. And Colin comes in. He goes, "Please tell me you've still got the duffel bag full of shit." And he's like, "Yeah, I still got it, homie. It's right here." And he goes, "Okay, good, great. That's awesome, bro." He's like, "Look, you might want to get out of here because I'm about to have to shoot somebody, and you might not want to be around for that." He goes, "What kind of guy you might have to shoot?" Just out of curiosity. He goes, "Well, he's kind of short and he's not too good at fighting and he looks like this." He goes, I got a guy that looks just like that in my closet." And he goes, "That's awesome. Guess what? Since you still had the shit and you got that taken care of, go ahead and pack your bags, buddy." And Kyle was like, did I just get promoted?" And he's like, "Yeah, dude, you got promoted. You're going to Arkansas. You're going to Arkansas." So then Kyle starts narrating again, and he's like, the thing about organized crime in the South is that it's not that fucking organized. A lot of people really flatter us with that term Dixie Mafia because we're not like the Italians or the Russians or the Irish or anybody like that. We're just kind of a loose association of scumbags and degenerates that just kind of move around and do our shit because we don't really have those family ties or whatever. So, we see him tell us, "Hey, I'm a drug dealer. This is what I do." And we see him making little hands to hands and dropping off duffel bags at a urinal, and another guy picks it up, they drops it off at, and since he got promoted, the next thing we see is the camera cuts to a water tower that says Little Rock, Arkansas. And as it cuts down from there, Kyle drives up in his car and he pulls up on this truck that is there with this guy standing next to it, this little hipster dude with his man bun and shit, and he's standing there next to this truck that's a flatbed truck, and it's loaded up with all this stuff with a tarp over it. And he gets out and he goes, "Hey, are you is your name Swin? You're the guy I'm supposed to meet?" He's like, "Yeah, man, that's me. I'm Swin. Nice to meet you, buddy. This is our vehicle and this is what we're gonna do." And he's looking at this truck, which is just kind of like a short bed, diesel truck that's like got nothing but like, space on the back for just cargo to be hauled, and all this stuff is stacked up to the roof of it, and it's got this little like tarp over all the stuff. And he's looking at it and he's checking it over, and he goes, "What the hell's with the little cones that you've got on the back?" He goes, "Oh, I don't know, buddy. I just thought that would like throw the cops off, and I'm a kind of a criminal mastermind." He's like, "Yeah, sure you are.
Everybody wants to be my friend.
Everybody wants to be my friend. You're gonna like me eventually." He's like, yeah, sure I am. Whatever, bud. Fine." So they get in the truck and they take off down the road, and they're getting to know each other a little bit, and just frankly, they're not vibing, okay? And they're like seeing, chicks on the road, and Swin's talking about chicks on the road, and, they're just really not feeling each other. And now all of a sudden, like, they start to hear this flapping noise, and they've noticed a tarp has come loose. And so, since the tarp has come loose and it's flapping, and that's an unsecured load ticket, which is basically when you're moving a bunch of contraband product, is as much of a liability as having a tail light out. They decide to pull over and take care of that shit immediately.
Or not going the speed limit.
Or not going the speed limit. That's another little conversation they have. Like, we don't need to be going extra fast to make time, because getting pulled over with a load full of fucking contraband drugs and shit is definitely going to make you later than you would be if you just went the speed limit or tried to save time going over it. So they pull over, and they don't even have anything to fucking fix the load with, because they really just did not think this shit through. So they're like walking into a Dollar General after they park the truck, and as they're walking back to the truck with fucking duct tape, he's like, "Why do you got duct tape?" He's like, "Well, that was the only thing they had." He's like, "All right, bro, we'll just deal with that." And as they're walking back to the truck, they see the worst thing you could possibly see in their situation. They see there is a police officer, like, looking over.
What looks like a police officer.
What looks like a police officer. We see this dude, like, wearing this, this wide-brimmed hat, and he's got a uniform on with a badge and a gun, and he's checking out all their shit, right? And so, as they're walking up to it, Swin's like, "I'll take care of this. This is no big deal. I'll just go talk my way out of this." And he's like, "How you doing, officer? It's good to see you today."
Oh, yeah, the first aid kit's in the glove box.
Yeah, the first aid kit's in the glove box. Don't you want to check and see how good we're doing at all of our stuff, and checking all of our boxes, and crossing all of our T's, and dotting all of our I's? And, the cop's like, very good, buddy. Let's see. So, what exactly are you carrying? And by the way, let me check how you have this stacked. I'm a little bit of a safety inspector. What are you carrying anyway? What's the load? He's like, and then he says some dumb shit. He's like, "Okay, we're carrying a load of faucets. Like, it used to be some other kind of load we used to carry, but we're taking a load of faucets down to Corpus Christi for some computer investor or some dumb shit like that." And it just really doesn't fucking add up. And so he's like, "Oh, wow, that's smart. They don't have any faucets in Corpus Christi, huh?" And as he's sitting there and Swin's talking to the cop and whatever, and shit's getting increasingly bad, Kyle goes in the truck and he pulls out a gun and he comes around and he points it at the cop and he's like, "Hands up, motherfucker."
Oh, there's the first aid kit.
Yeah, there's the first aid kit. So, anyway, so he puts the pistol at the cop, and the cop just kind of looks at him. He's like, "Ooh, I'm so scared." He's like, you guys suck at this, by the way. And just so you know, I work for your boss, Frog. The guy that they work for, his name is Frog, and that's all they know about him, right? So anyway, he's like, "Yeah, guess what? I work for Frog, and I've been hired by Frog to intervene." You kind of get the impression at this point that this guy, this cop whose name is Bright, he introduces himself as Bright. He's like, "Yeah, so, I've known the Frog Man for years, and I was pretty much hired to kind of check you guys out and make sure you were doing everything correctly, and you guys just fucked it up big time, okay? And
now you're under me."
Now you're under me. And then all of a sudden, this dude Colin pulls up, the same one that told him he was gotten promoted, and he's like, "Yeah, bro, you just fucked this all up. Give me your pistol." And he takes it away from him, and he's like, "All right, you fuck with Bright, you follow him, and you do exactly what he tells you to do." And Bright says, "Okay, guess what? You're gonna go with me to a little state park where I'm a park ranger. You're gonna get your little trailers. There are 2 identical trailers, and you're gonna be there, and instead of moving big loads like we thought you were ready for, you're gonna move little bitty small loads from now on." So that's what happens. They end up going to the state park, and they do all this dumb shit where they're posing as park rangers, all this mundane thing like blowing off little gazebos and giving people directions and shit like that. And of course they are, making little runs all the time and whatever. So they end up making these runs, and they end up doing all of this stuff. And one of the things that he tells them is, "Look, there's a couple of rules here, okay? You're not supposed to fuck with the locals, you don't interact with people, you don't make friends, and for fuck's sake, don't bring any girls around." Well, they've made all of like 1 or 2 loads, because they're running like duffel bag and cooler size loads instead of like flatbed truck side loads, right? Yeah, they basically went from level 5 to level 3 again, or level 2 or some shit like that. So they basically done that, and they've gotten bored, and they're at the fucking next thing we see, they're at the Piggly Wiggly, and as they're walking around just buying groceries or doing whatever they're doing and whatever, we see Swin see this girl that he likes, and Swin is one of these dorky motherfuckers with a man bun and the Hawaiian shirt and all that shit. He kind of looks like the sort of libertarian that I hate, to be honest with you. Except, unlike those motherfuckers, he actually has some skills with girls. Like, so he starts talking to this girl that he sees wearing scrubs, and he's talking to her and asking her name, and she's like, "What's your name, motherfucker?" And he's like, "Well, my name is Swin." And she's like, "Jesus, your name is almost as stupid as mine is. My name is Shauna," which is not as stupid of a name as Swin, but, she's being kind to him. And, she basically tells him to kick rocks, but he doesn't. He kicks rocks off out of the parking lot and starts talking to her. And it's a good thing at this point that our buddy Swin, like, has some game name, because anyone else would have definitely gotten the cops called on them and been like shot and killed by their bosses that they're
there's no
working
doubt.
for.
He gives off the creepy vibe. He gives off the creepy vibe.
He gives off like the idiot vibe, but not completely the creepy vibe, because if he gave off the creepy vibe, like she'd have whacked him with her purse and been like, Bobby Hill and King of the Hill, that's my purse, I don't know.
Well, there's
you,
different levels of creepy.
And he has just the right amount of cute to go along with his like idiot creepy that, you know, she falls for it.
That's the whole point. That's the type of creepy. It's an idiot type of creepy. Like, oh, you're cute and adorable like a puppy.
Right, so, you know, she ends up telling him that, like, okay, look, I will go out with you as long as you'll go out with me for like 4 or 5 dates and you don't try to kiss me until then. He's like,
or sex.
Oh, well, obviously, right.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, no, that's fine. I don't care. Whatever, that's good. And so, you know, one of the next thing we see them doing, one of the first things we see them doing is they decide to go on like a little day date, and they go to this little like thrift store or this little pawn shop or some shit like that, that's with this strange dude that doesn't really seem to be all that interested in moving shit. And Shauna is trying to like move a scooter or something like that, and he's like, oh, I'll give you this much for it. And she's like, oh, only that much? Well, why don't you do this and this? And he's just kind of like, look, bitch, I really don't need to make money. I just kind of do this because I don't even care that much about making money. I really care about just listening to the St. Louis Cardinals on the radio, and you can take it or leave it for what I'm fucking giving you. And so they end up selling the scooter to him. And the next thing we see shortly after that is it's a rainy night at the park, and Kyle and Swin are locked in at their boss's house, their boss Bright. They're sitting over there at his cabin, and all of a sudden the thunder and the lightning starts to come, and he's like, look, if you guys are going to get back to your cabin, then you need to go ahead and go back now because it's about to rain, and they're not seeming to be in any hurry for it. So they all end up over there, and since they're all stuck together in the rain, Bright decides, hey, look, okay, let's have a little party out of this. He keeps it super duper Irish. And by the way, we don't talk much about actors on this, but Bright, our buddy here, is played by none other than John Malkovich. So if you know like the main mastermind from Con Air, that is our homeboy right here in this movie, and I swear to God, he hasn't aged a day. So anyway, he decides to pour him up some Jack Daniels, and he gives them a very good idea and some very good advice for anyone that is involved in illegal business. And he says, look, you guys just need to know this. A bored criminal is a good criminal. So if you're bored, then that's great. And, you know, at this point, I just gotta say, like, only victimless crime can be boring. Because, like, if you're actually, like, kicking in doors and robbing people or stealing shit or doing something that's actually bad that you need to, like, worry about, other than, like, helping, like, you know, grown adults do what they want to with their own bodies, which is basically what every drug dealer is doing. Unless you're someone that's actually providing a public service right then, you're never going to be bored because you're doing bad things to people, and you're always going to have that anxiety over your shoulder of somebody's coming to get you. So, yeah, no, a bored criminal is a good criminal because the only good criminal is a criminal that's committing victimless crime. You know, and that's pretty much the end of my sermon for here. So anyway, he ends up telling him, your next thing you got to do is you got to go make a drop off for her.
Oh yeah, her is actually a middle of the middle type.
She's kind of like the you know, the distributor for her area. She's like the person,
the district manager.
Yeah, you know, she's like the Dollar General of drugs for her area, and she's got 5 or 6 employees, and those employees help their little customers get their little retail amounts of cocaine. Like,
but don't get it wrong, she still works under Frog.
Yeah, she still works for Frog because he's not fucking with nobody that he don't know or whatever, right? And nobody he ain't basically under his control or whatever, because he's controlling the whole damn thing. So and Kyle and Swin don't know Frog, and they even have a conversation about that earlier. I'm like, do you think that Bright might be Frog? And Swin's like, no, dude, there's no way in hell Bright would be Frog. Like, it's gonna be a long time before we meet Frog, and you know, we're not really gonna know shit about him except conjecture until we get there. So anyway, they're gonna make a drop off for her, and that goes pretty well, you know. And of course, she calls herself her, not because she's like a badass R&B singer, but because she's really a smart drug dealer, and she knows that if anybody was ever listening or the feds had a wiretap or any bullshit like that, like they hear people talking about her this and her that, well, that could be any female at all. So, you know, it's a really smart thing to call yourself. That's like the smartest street name I've ever heard in my life, right?
Well, yeah, because it's literally in the dictionary, her. It describes, like, her shoes, her dress.
And especially in the age of changing your gender, that could be a brilliant thing to call yourself, right?
Oh, yeah, that too. Because
most definitely.
Because who's going to suspect a natural-born male to call themselves her in this day and age?
And to be clear, this lady that's, like, you know, picking up this load of shit, she's not any kind of butterfly, so to speak. She's a regular female, okay?
Yeah.
So anyway, the next thing we see is that Bright says, okay, you guys need to run over the border to Louisiana, and you need to go take this bag to see these weird Greek motherfuckers, and instead of doing the deal like you did did with her, where you just show up and read a note under a board and then drop off a bag and then get the fuck out of there.
You need to talk to him.
Yeah, you actually got to talk to him, and you're not just going to be dropping off, you're actually going to be picking up. Like, you're going to drop off the shit and you're going to pick up the payment at the same time. So that's a little bit of an upgrade that they've got in where they're at this time, because before that they were just running and dropping shit off.
Oh yeah, it's pretty much, they were the delivery boys.
Exactly. And if you don't know anything about how the drug operations work, whether it's at like the little retail level or especially at this level, the reason every little job is usually broken up in the drug game like this is because it alleviates risk. Like, if you've got one guy taking the money and you've got another guy delivering the shit, you've got another guy asking what somebody wants and whatever, then it's harder for the authorities to build a case on you. And also it is less for your employer to worry about. If you're just dropping the shit off and somebody else gets the money, then he doesn't have to worry about you running off with the fucking money. He just has to worry about you running off with the shit, right?
Oh yeah, it's easier to replace the shit instead of the money.
Oh, most definitely, right? So anyway, they go to these people's house, they go to these weird Greek motherfuckers' house, and they drop off the stuff, and it's this old Greek grandpa. Clearly these people are not originally from Louisiana, but they're in Louisiana and they're doing whatever they do and whatever, and they drop off the shit and he shows it to him and they checks it out. It's like hiding in a soccer ball or something, and he cuts open the soccer ball and he pulls it out and he sticks his knife in, pulls it out and checks the shit and whatever. And they never say exactly what they're trying to fucking deal here or whatever, but it's cocaine. Okay, let me just say it right now, it's all cocaine. That's what most of the South is. It's cocaine capitalism. That's how the underbelly of the South fucking works. So anyway, he gets over there, he shows the guy the stuff, and he's just kind of dragging his feet. It's just kind of getting kind of weird. The vibe's off. He's like, where's the money, motherfucker? Like, here's your shit, where's the fucking money? And he tells his weird ass, crazy ass grandson, who he just kind of looks like a fucktard, okay? He just looks like a motherfucker. And he's like, hey, go get this stuff. And he's kind of dragging his feet, and he's like scowling at him and shit like that, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry about this dude, he's weird. And then he tells him about this fucked up shit he did when he's a teenager, which you're just gonna have to watch this movie for yourself if you want to know about that, because we're not gonna touch that one.
That's a big giant X.
We're not gonna touch that one. It's entertaining, it's funny, but it's a little cringy. So yeah, just check this out for yourself if you want to hear that dialogue. But anyway, so he very hardly establishes that, my grandson's a fucking creep, and here's some shit he did when he was a kid that proves he's a creep. And then he's like, hey, look, motherfucker, go get the money, damn it, you're pissing off our guest. And so he goes and he gets the money and he brings it to him, he tosses it to him, but the whole thing is still weird, and Kyle is definitely not feeling it at this point. Like, Swin's trying to be like, amiable, and he's trying to be cool, and he's trying to just like, alleviate the situation and shit, but Kyle's just not having it. He's like, look, you get the money or this is gonna get really fucked up really fast. And so, long story short, the dude gets the money, they drop off the shit, and then they get the fuck out of there. They get back in their little like Chevy Astro van and they take off back to Arkansas. And as they're going down the road to Arkansas, it's Swin driving, and Swin is definitely not got his mind in the game. Swin is all fucking throwed, like a lot of people get throwed, and this is a really classic story, over a bitch, right?
Oh yeah, it's like, I need to get home now.
So I can fuck with Shauna, so I can keep breaking the rules and doing the one damn things that Bright told me not to do.
We also see Kyle telling him off about that too, by the way.
Oh, we see that in just a minute, because the next thing we see as they're driving home, his camera cuts to the car behind him, and guess who it is? It's that weird motherfucker that did that crazy shit as a kid. It's that son of a bitch grandson, that Greek fucker's grandson, and he's like following him down the road, and Swin doesn't see it, because even though that's his job, he's the driver, it's his job to fucking be on his P's and Q's and shit. He doesn't see any of that shit because he's thinking about Shauna and all that shit. And he does not even see this dude in this really obvious car, because it's like a riced out Honda with the fucking like, the exhaust and the spoiler and all that bullshit.
It's pretty much a typical tracer car.
It's not even that typical. Like, their car is really inconspicuous, but the dude following him is obvious as shit. Like, this dude following him looks like the fucking Fast and the Furious. There's not another Honda on the road that looks like this dumb motherfucker, and they really should have spotted him, and it should have been really easy, but he doesn't see him because he's thinking about a chick, right? And so the next thing we see after that is it cuts to a scene of it's him and Shauna, and they're at this bar, and there's this dude doing this fucked up cover of the most famous George Jones song in the world, He Stopped Loving Her Today, right? And if y'all didn't know, George Jones actually thought that song was morbid as shit and stupid and never thought it was gonna sell. But for more on that, check out Tyler Mahanco's podcast, Cocaine and Rhinestones. But true story. Anyway, so they're at this little bar, and this dude is giving this cover of this song, which is totally cringe, and it's really funny, and it gives some good style to this movie. And they're not even paying all attention to this dumbass cover of like He Stopped Loving Her Today. They're paying attention to each other. And the next thing we see is, guess what? Because he's out fucking around with the chick while Kyle, I guess, is presumably at home in bed or whatever, this dude kind of sneaks up on Bright, the same dude that followed them home. He comes into the park, and he comes into where Bright stays, and he sneaks in on Bright, and he fucking takes him hostage, and he's like, give me the money, motherfucker. And he's like, dude, are you stupid? This is not how this fucking works. Like, did those assholes that work for me put you up to this? And he's like, no, they didn't put me up to it, dude. I just followed them home. And Bright is like, oh my god, this is even worse than if they were fucking working for you. Like, he's so mad at this point, right?
Oh yeah, because don't forget, you as a driver with money and all that in this storyline, you're supposed to be keeping out for a tail.
The one damn time that he upgraded their responsibility a little bit, like, he finally started to trust him just a little bit more after they fucked with the careful lady, the chick that calls herself her. Like, the one damn time he decided to upgrade their responsibilities a little bit and let them do a drop-off and a pickup at the same time, they fuck it up completely and don't even fucking check their six while they're coming back with the money and shit. So, like, you know, and that's critical in the drug game, is because, let's just face it, like, the fucked up thing about the drug game is that it's full of people who think that they're doing an evil thing, even though there's nothing wrong with selling drugs. It's full of people who think that they're doing an evil thing, so they don't have any fucking problem doing something evil to you. They don't have any problem robbing their customers. They don't have any fucking problem ripping off other people, because it's a limited market. There's not nearly enough fucking product to fulfill what the demand is for the drug market, so they have no fucking problem ripping off other people. And that's one of the things you need to look out for in this game, and that's one of the things they were supposed to look out for in this fucking game, and they don't. Okay, so Bright's pissed. Like, this is really a slap in the face to him. It's like he finally trusted these two dumb motherfuckers to, like, do a decent job and shit after they'd learned a little responsibility, and they fuck it up completely. And, you know, this crazy Greek son of a bitch ends up, like, tying him up and torturing him and kicking him and shit. And he's like, give me the money, give me the money. And long story short, what ends up happening with him is
they fight over a gun.
They fight over a gun, and they both fucking get shot, okay? And of course, Bright's mad at himself too, because Bright got caught slipping in this situation, because even though he's on his own turf, even though he thought he was safe and insulated, even though he's got other people fucking doing the actual making moves for him, he still should have been strapped. He's a fucking cop, for fuck's sake, or at least playing as a cop, even though he's really like a fucking dope runner. Like, he should have been strapped at this point, even on his own turf. Even if you don't fucking do anything with drugs, or don't do anything, period. If you're an American, you should always fucking have your shit on you, always, period. And especially if you're involved in this, and he doesn't. So he got caught slipping by this motherfucker who got through the cracks of these other people that got him. So he's mad at himself, and he's mad at these other motherfuckers, and he doesn't want to go out easy. So he ends up jumping this son of a bitch and grabbing his gun, and he ends up managing to fucking, like, strike the bitch a couple of times, and then he ends up getting hit, but he gets hit himself at the same time. So they end up lying on the floor bleeding out and shit. And that's exactly how Kyle and Swin find them the next day. Like, they come in to go meet up with their boss to see, okay, boss, what are we gonna do today? Whose delivery we're gonna do? Who's got an order in or whatever? And they see, oh shit, here's the dude we just did a fucking deal with yesterday, and here's our boss, and they're both fucking lying here dead.
And even before that, they see the blood trail and everything.
Yeah, they come into the house and they see the fucking, like, blood on the stairs and shit like that. They knew shit was fucked up. Like, you walk into your boss's house and you see drops of blood, and there's like a bloody handprint on the stairs. Like, whatever it leads to is not gonna be fucking good. And of course,
oh no,
it wasn't. Well, you know, Kyle snaps into action immediately after he sees this, and he's like, all right, Swin, first off, don't freak out. This is not that big of a deal as you think it is, which is hilarious, because this is a very big deal.
Oh yeah, it is a big deal, because right now your connection between Frog and her and all these other people
is gone. Like, you don't know where to, you don't know where to get the work, and you don't know where to fucking take it. But like, they're kind of stuck. But he's like, okay, it's not as bad as it seems. He's like, I know how these organizations work, you know. And as he said, organized crime in the South, it's not that organized or whatever. Somebody will be along to fucking take care of this thing. So anyway, he's like, all right, look, Swin, here's the thing. Our boss is dead, and there's that motherfucker that you weren't paying attention to that followed us home, you dumb son of a bitch. So here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go to the store and get some, like, tubs and battery acid and shovels and supplies and shit, and I'm gonna run to Louisiana real quick. So he picks up the gun that the fucking, you know, his boss and the dude that shot him just got shot with, and then he hops in Bright's Corvette, because Bright was a car guy. He had this Corvette. He spent like hours and hours polishing, like, you know, a tweaker and shit. And, you know, he ends up, like, he takes the gun, he hops in his boss's Corvette, and he takes the fuck off to Louisiana, and he goes right back to where he just was yesterday, and he pulls up in there. We don't even see him go inside the house. We just kind of see the camera outside the house, and we hear this, like, audio going on. But he walks in there.
Oh, I thought I would return your grandson's gun.
Yeah, he's fucking gangster as shit. He walks right in there. He's like, hey, buddy, I just thought I would return your grandson's gun. And what's in it, motherfucker? And he fucking blick, and blows that son of a bitch away, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's over for him, right? Then he goes back over to Arkansas, chainsaw, and he and Swin end up burying the fucking dude, and they push the guy's car in the water, and that's pretty much end of chapter 1, because this story is told in chapters, okay? So
this movie is 5 chapters long.
This movie is 5 chapters, okay? And that's just chapter 1. Chapter 2, basically all about Frog's backstory, okay? It's jumping all the way back to Memphis in 1985, and we see this guy working at a pawn shop, and guess who it is? This is the first twist in the movie, and the only one we're gonna give you. It's the same dude that was working at the little pawn shop that Shauna and Swin took the little scooter to. So guess what?
Dun, dun, dun.
They met Frog, and they didn't even know it. And, you know, again, we're not all about actors and shit, but this movie has got some badass fucking actors in it, and it's Vince Vaughn, motherfucker. So, you know, I gotta say something just because I'm a libertarian, Vince Vaughn's a libertarian, so, you know, small L represent, fucking, this is my homeboy, okay? And he's playing in this shit, and he's on his shit, and he's doing some shit in this movie. So, anyway, we find out in this scene the backstory of Frog, who, of course, is the guy that was just in the little store listening to the St. Louis Cardinals that Shauna and Swin sold the fucking scooter to. He's hiding in plain sight this whole time. So we get a little bit on his backstory, and it's Memphis, it's 1985, and he's doing the same thing in 1985 that he was doing in like 2020 when Swin and Shauna met up with him selling that scooter. He's just running a pawn shop, basically, and he's in there one day, and all of a sudden this dude comes in, he's like, hey, look, man, I got something for you to move. I got some bootleg cassette tapes. Like, it's so 80s, but like, yeah, he's got this bootleg cassette tapes, and he's like, all right, fine, I'll do it, and he slings all these bootleg cassette tapes for him, and then the dude with the bootleg, man, he comes back one day, and he's like, look, I don't got any more tapes for you. I got something else for you. And he drops off a duffel bag full of fucking angel dust.
He's like, also, by the way, peace, I'm leaving.
Yeah, like, I just left my position in the drug game, and here, you can take over it. You go ahead and sling this boat, homie. This should be just as easy for you to fucking sling that boat, that angel dust, that sherm stick, that water, that wet, that whatever. It should be just as easy for you to fucking get rid of this as it is for you to get rid of them bootleg cassette tapes. So, have a good time. And P.S., you know, somebody will be around to pick up the money for it. And Frog's just kind of like, well, fuck it, whatever. I guess I'll just do this. And he does. And he's doing that for a little while, and he's moving this PCP, and he's like making little deals and shit. And then all of a sudden, one day, this dude shows up and basically like robs him, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, he kills the guy.
Yeah, he's at a hotel right next to a Waffle House, and he's sitting in there, and he's like buying a donut.
Oh yeah,
he's buying himself a jelly donut next to the Waffle House, if you know what I'm talking about, okay? And just as soon as he gets done with the jelly donut and pays the jelly donut and sends her on her way, he ends up going outside to get himself some Waffle House, and as soon as he's walking in back into his room, all of a sudden this dude pulls up, rolls the window down, and pulls a gun. He points it at him, and he's like, get in the car, motherfucker. And so Frog's like, alright, fuck it. He does. And he gets in the car, and we hear him say, listen, man, that shit you sold to Bright was some bunk. So, you know, this is the first clue we get that him and Bright knew each other a long, long time, right? Like, Bright wasn't bullshitting when he told him at the little stop that he'd known him a while. He goes, yeah, that shit you sold to Bright was some bunk. He goes, what do you mean it was some bunk? He's probably just lying. He goes, he might be, homie, but, like, that ain't my business. I'm just here to fucking, like, hold you up and take you, you know, take your shit for it. And he goes, okay, I guess I can't blame you for just doing your job or whatever. Do you want some of this little steak and eggs and waffles I got in here? And he's like, no, of course I don't, motherfucker. He's like, go ahead. He already took his gun off. I mean, he, like, you know, he called his bluff. He's like, yeah, and I know you have a gun. Because Frog was all like, no, I don't have a gun. He's like, yeah, you do, motherfucker. Get it out. And he got it from him and whatever. So anyway, he's like, oh, I'm just going to eat my steak and eggs while riding down the road here. And because, you know, back then, I guess they didn't do plastic silverware in the 80s or whatever, at least not in this particular instance, Frog takes the metal fork that he got from the Waffle House and he stabs this motherfucker right in the eye that's trying to kidnap him. And the car runs off the road. And, you know, the guy's sitting there grabbing his face and Frog just picks up his gun again and blows the motherfucker away.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's not shy around that.
Frog does not fuck around. So the next thing we see Frog do after he, you know, like stabs this guy in the eye with a Waffle House fork and gets his gun and, you know, finishes him off.
After wrecking the car, we can't forget.
After wrecking the car, like, you know, it turns out you can't drive too well with a Waffle House fork in your eye in case anyone, you know, if you're driving home from Waffle House food, you know, don't stab yourself in the eye with a fork.
Please don't.
Please don't. Anyway, so the next thing we see after that happens is Frog gets on a payphone and he's talking to somebody and the first thing he's saying is, hey, so check it out. Shit just got real over here and I need to get the fuck out of Memphis.
I need to bounce.
I need to bounce. And he's like, okay, look, buddy, I got a dude in Pine Bluff, which I guess is another place in Tennessee. So he's like, you need to go to this place and check this dude out and just, you know, tell him you know me when you get there. So the next thing that we see is Frog is walking into a fireworks store and he meets this guy named Almond who is played by none other than Michael K. Williams. And he walks in and he's like, hey, what can I do for you? He's like, guess what? I'm not here to buy about fireworks. I'm here to talk to you about some of that other business, if you know what I'm saying. So he's like, and you're from where now? He's like, I'm from Memphis. And he's like, hold on a second. And he walks over and he picks up the phone, and while he's on the phone, shit's getting tense, right? Like, he's just not feeling it, and Frog's not feeling it, because we see Frog reaching behind his bag and he's grabbing his shit. Almond knows what the fuck is up. He's doing the same damn thing, and before he even fucking finishes listening to the phone trill and his dude that he's calling picks up, he pulls out a fucking Desert Eagle and points it right at Frog. He's like, don't get touchy with me, motherfucker. You're gonna sit here and wait till I talk to this dude.
In other words, he's been around the block enough to know.
He's been around the block a minute. Like, I don't know exactly where Pine Bluff is in Tennessee, but yeah, he's been around the block and the block for sure, okay? So what happens is, he's sitting there, he's holding the gun on Frog, and all of a sudden the line picks up, and then what?
What happens next is the responder goes, is my friend there? And he's like, yeah, I'm talking to him right now.
And then he asks him, he's like, are you alive?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, no, I'm alive. Yeah. I'm good. I'm fine. He goes, okay, word, no problem. So then he puts down the phone, and then he and Frog are friends. So they talk for a minute, and he goes, all right, buddy. He reaches into the bottom of his filing cabinet, and he pulls out a cigarette box of Marlboro Reds, and somehow I feel like it was not tobacco that was in there, because he hands it to him, and he's like, look here, bud, this is the deal. You got 1 week to turn this into a franchise. So, happy entrepreneuring, happy businessing, and all that shit.
Which, if you think about it, it would be a good business practice, especially if going into this type of business, to see what this other person is bringing to the table.
And again, I said earlier, like, this is what most of the South is. It's cocaine capitalism. Like, they never really tell us exactly what they're dealing, but I promise you it's cocaine. Okay, so anyway, he hands it off to him, and he says, look, now, if anybody fucks with you, anybody sweats you out there while you're out moving my shit, you just tell them that Almond sent you. You just drop my name, tell them it's with me, and they'll fuck off immediately. So the next thing that happens is we see Frog, like, moving around in honky tonks, and he's doing lots of hand-to-hands, and he's making lots of friends, and he gets right to work on that shit. And the next thing that happens is we see him right back there in the fireworks store talking to Almond. He's like, look, you're back quick. He's like, yeah, no shit. He's like, actually, I need some more. I went ahead and fucking got rid of all that shit, and I need some more work so I can keep working. And he's like, look, no, you can't do that shit, okay? That's gonna bring too much heat. You can't do that. This is not how that works. Like, I can't give you more of that shit. And then he gives him this bullshit about, like, oh no, if I give you more of that stuff, then these people will go out there and they'll fuck up their lives and they'll ruin their shit, and then that'll bring attention on us, and then they'll be out of money and I'll be out of customers. He just gives him all this standard, like, drugs are bad bullshit, like I'm a bad guy doing a bad thing, and you can't do too much or you'll be doing too much.
In other words, he's trying to pretty much BS him.
Yeah, he's trying to cover up the fact that he doesn't have any more fucking work for him, okay? So basically what happens is Almond tells Frog, he's like, look, rule number 1 is whatever I give you, you make that shit last a week. So fucking sorry, that's all the money you're gonna make. Get the fuck out of here. And Frog just leaves. And so, we just see him hanging around the honky tonk. He's probably copping, to be honest with you, at that point, because Frog's the kind of guy that's just not gonna just sit around and do that shit. He'd probably pick up some more work from somebody else, just like people do nowadays, but I guess maybe it was different in, little towns in Tennessee in the 80s or whatever. But, we see these, like, dudes that look like they do yayo come up to him, and he just says, hey, guys, sorry, like, I'm out right now. And they're like, oh, don't worry, buddy, we've got something for you. And then they all, like, grab him and they throw him on the floor and they start kicking his ass. And then he basically says something like, yeah, motherfucker, this is from Sheldon.
Don't forget, he also uses Almond's name.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Like, whether, about to rough him up or whatever, he's like, look, no, dude, I work for Almond. And he's like, yeah, we know, motherfucker. And they just keep kicking his ass. So, Frog gets up and he goes back to the fireworks stand and he talks to Almond. He's like, look, motherfucker, check out what just happened. And he's like, oh shit, it was goddamn Shelton, wasn't it? And he's like, yeah, it was fucking Shelton. And he goes, who the fuck is Shelton? And he goes, that's my brother-in-law. And it's not just his brother-in-law, it's his ops. And that's exactly what Almond explains. He's like, this motherfucker is so lame that he couldn't even come up with a better front for his shit than I have. He'd copy me straight up, just like fucking Young Thug with that Lil Wayne album cover, right? And he looks across the street and he sees there's another fucking fireworks stand, and it's understood that, yeah, that's fucking Shelton's store right over there, okay? Sheldon's like the lamest fucking name in the world for like a coke dealer.
Especially in the South.
Can you imagine the dude from the Big Bang Theory like trying to be like the main man in a coke operation?
Well, technically that would be not suspicious at all, because who would think the, high Q accurate person would be dealing on the side?
That's true. That's very, very true. And so I guess that is kind of gangster in a way, but at the same time it's like, it's still lame. Even if it's gangster, it's still lame.
Yeah, because at the same time, having all the issues that he does in the show, he probably would be,
I swear to God, if Shelton started doing cocaine, then I would fucking watch The Big Bang Theory. I wouldn't even need the laugh track anymore. Like, straight up. So basically, Almond gets an idea, and he's like, all right, check this out. He's like, you and me are going to take a ride, and you're going to drive me somewhere. So Frog and Almond get in the car, and they drive over to one of Almond's friends' houses, and it is this very, very southern slash very, very Mexican lady. And when I say southern, I don't mean like in the, South America. No, she's like Tennessee southern, okay? But she also speaks Spanish, and when she speaks English, she got that Tennessee accent. So they're sitting around, and he's like, okay, so what are we going to do here? He's like, well, we're going to watch a movie, motherfucker. We're not going to go anywhere for a while because these people right here is careful as fuck, and the one damn thing that will get you noticed when you are in the dope game is too much motherfucking traffic coming in and out of your spot.
So pretty much this is Almond's supplier.
Oh yeah, this is Almond's supplier. And obviously Almond didn't want to just give more work over to Frog, and he didn't want to admit the fact that he didn't even have more work to give over to him. But, I feel like out of spite, because Shelton was out there fucking with him, he decided, oh, okay, you know what, I'm gonna fuck with them like this. I'm gonna run it up. I'm gonna make more goddamn money. That's how I'm gonna get back at Shelton.
Well, yeah, if you stop and think about it, Frog made waves enough for Shelton to notice him and to go and literally send him a message saying you need to fucking stop your shit.
Oh, absolutely. And keep in mind, like, we kind of glossed over this. We skipped over this completely, but, like, Frog had just murked somebody that was trying to fuck with him. So Frog doesn't fuck around. He does not tolerate that shit one little bit in the street, okay? And the first thing he even said to Almond is, look, why don't we just go out there and fucking put some holes in this son of a bitch and throw him in the river? And he's like, well, I can't do that, man. That's my brother-in-law. And then Almond says a very intelligent thing. He's like, I don't need fucking homicide detectives hanging over my shit and wondering what somebody got murked over and looking at me and shit. It's just not worth the heat to murk this motherfucker. And, frankly, it ain't good for the market. I mean, even if it would be good for his market in the short term, it wouldn't be good for him to have the sole he to be in the sole coke distributor. And let's face it, fucking Almond can't even get enough work to give his fucking people some more work. So he would definitely be fucked if the whole, like, fucking market of Pine Bluff was coming all straight to him, and he doesn't even have enough to, like, re-up his people, right?
Oh, yeah.
For sure. So anyway, what happens next is they sit around, they watch the movie, and basically Almond's people give the approval to, start like upping his game, start like upping the amount that they're giving to him.
And at this point we see his interactions with doing this. And then as it goes on, apparently he likes numbers. He loves numbers.
Yeah, exactly. So and that's pretty much the next thing we see. Frog gets re-upped by Almond's plug. After he just did a bunch more business and moved a whole bunch more shit, he's sitting down and he's like making little piles and he's laying out the money and stuff and he's taking notes and shit. And he's taking notes on how much everybody is making. And when you look at the numbers on this shit, it's really fucked up because like every time they make a whole movement, every time they move a whole shipment, Almond gets 12 grand and then his people get like, I don't know, like 38 or some ridiculous shit like that.
Yeah, around there. And meanwhile, Frog only making 900.
Yeah, and then when you know something about the game and you know something about the numbers, and this is in the 80s, okay? This is when like the boom is really going on, and this is 1985, so like basically it's about the time that crack just hit. So you know some of these people are out there fucking rocking it up and they're flipping it off to a whole new market. But basically for every fucking brick that they move, Almond's plug is making like almost 40 G's, and then Almond is making like 12 G's, and then Frog isn't even making a fucking stack for every time that he moves a brick. He's not even making $1,000. He's making $900 for every time he moves a fucking almost $40,000 brick for these motherfuckers. And he realizes, I'm doing all the goddamn work right here. I'm taking all the risk to do this shit. With every little movement he makes, that's fucking like serious risk. And he's doing all the work to fucking get this shit moved, and he's getting like nothing from it. And he sits there and he looks at it, and you see this on this paper, and he's just like,
you'd see his face turn.
And when y'all watch this movie, pause it for yourself just for a second at that point where he's looking at that paper and think about those numbers for just a second. That's all I'm saying.
And at this point, I think while we were watching the movie, I told you, he now decides that instead of being a cashier, if you have ever worked retail, instead of being a cashier,
he decides he needs to move up. And his exact line is, look, I may as well be selling fucking ice cream, like, instead of like, goddamn like powdered sugar.
Yeah. So in other words, he's trying to aim for Almond's spot, or so we assume. assume.
Because that's the very next thing we see is we see a takeover happen. Like the next thing we see is we see Frog is on the phone and he's talking to the motherfucking law, okay? And he says, yeah, so there is going to be a Cadillac coming down this street at so and such a time, and there's going to be 2 bricks of cocaine in the trunk, and you should check that out. And then it cuts right away. It doesn't fuck around showing us any arrests or any blue lights or no shit like that. The next thing we see is Almond is locked the fuck up in the county jail, and the first visitor he has on the other end picking up that little phone through the glass is of course Frog. And Almond knows what the fuck was up. He knows exactly how the fuck this shit happened, and he's like, motherfucker. And Frog's just kind of like, look buddy, if it wasn't me, it was gonna be somebody else. Aren't you glad it was me? And he's like, not really, bitch, shit. And he's like, but come on, aren't you a little glad? And he's like, yeah, whatever. Okay, listen, since you fucking did this to me, you're going to take care of my responsibilities as a man. You're going to take my sister, who I guess had some kind of special needs. They don't really go into it, but you're going to take my sister that I look after, and you're going to put her up at this apartment complex, and you're going to put her in the nicest fucking place and take care of that shit, and you're just going to handle all of my shit since I'm pretty much fucked. I'm going away for like the rest of my life, or like the rest of the good part of it anyway.
And Frog is like, well, I want
one more thing.
I want the middleman.
Yeah, I want the middleman, because you know when he went over to the plug's house with Frog and had Frog drive him over there, just like real gangsters, they don't keep any fucking work at the place where they watch movies at. They don't fucking even touch the shit. They have somebody do that shit for them, okay? Because it's a lot harder to build a conspiracy case than it is to fucking just build a, hey, we got you with the shit, you know? So anyway, Almond at this point was getting 9 G's per brick just to drive the shit to Frog, who was getting like less than 1 G to move the whole fucking thing. And you know, Frog is not fucking stupid. Even though he's only been in the game a little while by this point, he has already put his first body on his belt, and he's already figured out how this shit fucking works.
And he wants to become the manager.
He wants to be the manager. He wants to be the store manager of this little fucking region of the Coca game, okay? And so he knows that, like, Almond is not just going and getting that shit from the people they watch movies with. There's a little dude that hands it off to him, and so he just tells him after he says, yeah, I'll take care of your responsibilities as a man. I'll put your sister up. I'll look after that, whatever. He's like, look, I want the middleman. And then Almond's like, wow, you fucking thought of everything, didn't you? And he's like, yeah, I fucking did. I didn't just do this off the whim, man. Like, this is what's up. And so, you know, as soon as they leave the jail, we see this little guy sitting on a couch, and Frog sneaks up behind him and bashes him over the head and probably fucking rolls him in a ditch somewhere. The next thing we see after that is Frog is talking to the plug that they watch movies with, the guy that's supplying that dude that he just like hit over the head and got rid of.
And the plug is like,
I'm getting out of this game. I'm getting out of this business. My little position here at the Dollar General of cocaine has just come up for auction. I am getting out of this shit. And he's like, I'll pretty much just sell it to you for, what does he say, $100,000?
Yeah, and then Frog lowers it.
He's like, yeah, bro, I'll give you 50.
Yeah.
So he knows what the fuck is up, because he knew that the dude would get spooked if he fucking like lost his main person that was doing the shit, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you think about it, calculating, the best way to take anybody, even a corporation, over is from the inside. So logically speaking, as the manager in this case, all of a sudden your assistant manager is taken out, which would be the middleman.
I mean, he became the manager as soon as he took Almond out.
Yeah, because Almond was the, shift lead.
And then the next thing he's like, I want to take over the fucking region. Can you imagine if you're the manager of a Dollar General, you're the district manager or whatever, and all of a sudden somebody starts blowing up your truck that comes in to supply the motherfucker?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to think it's time to get out of the retail business, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely time to get out of the dollar store business. So he tells him, he's like, look, yeah, check it out. I've got these franchises for sale. All the ones that I manage, my job is for sale now. And he's like, yeah, so how about I'm not going to give you what you want out of it? I'm going to give you half that. And he gets it. And he gets it. Do you remember when the mayor of Chicago, I think his name was Blagojevich, got arrested after Barack Obama became the president? Because remember, Barack Obama was a senator before he became the president. And so it was one of those weird things that happens that, like, when this one senator got promoted, that left the Senate seat open, right?
Yeah.
I think he went to jail for it, for trying to auction off Barack Obama's Senate seat. He even got caught on wiretap by the Fed saying, this is a very valuable fucking thing. We're not just going to put anybody in it. And yeah, he got in trouble for that shit. That's pretty much what happened here, you know. Almond went away, and then, you know, Almond's drop-off man gets fucking gone, and then all of a sudden the dude that was supplying the drop-off man is like, I don't want to do this anymore, so my seat's up for auction. Let's start the bidding at 100,000, and Frog just like, nah, let's start it at 50, and a matter of fact, let's start and end it at 50, because that's how much you're gonna get. And the southern Mexican dude is like, all right, that's what's up, though. Here you go. And he basically gives him his cartel hookup, and
that's the end of Frog.
That's the end of Frog, you know. After this point, we cut back to what's going on in the present day with Kyle and Swin. And, you know, I really don't want to tell any more about this movie because this movie is dope as shit. And not only is that, but it's taken a long ass time to get here. This is a 2-hour movie.
And we're 2 of the 5 chapters.
Yeah, there's 5 chapters into it, and this is just the first 2, okay? So if you're not sold on this movie by this point in time, if you don't think that this movie is talking about real shit and knows its P's and Q's about real shit, then frankly, I don't think you know anything about real shit. And if you don't, then you probably won't like this movie. You don't have to know anything about real shit to like this movie because it's a good movie to start with. But if you're one of those people that knows so much about real shit that you don't like most movies because they're just full of fucking bullshit, trust me, you'll love this one. So, Danny, that brings us to our questions. That brings us to our standard questions on this movie. So our first question that we always ask about movies that we talk about is, do I care about these people? Do you care about these people, Danny?
In a way. And I have to say in a way because we really, we get Frog's backstory. We get sort of Kyle's and Swin's of story while it's going on in the present. And we sort of understand Bright and Almond. But at the same time, you know, you're not supposed to really like them.
You're not supposed to like any of these people, but that's kind of why I do, because this is not a pretentious movie. It's got a lot of, it has the right to be pretentious because they kept it accurate about shit that movies usually fuck up completely. Like the last one we reviewed, you know, was exceptional because it kept it real about drugs, not only about like the effects of drugs on the user. They didn't bullshit us about that, which most of them do. They didn't bullshit us about how the business of drugs works either. And even though this movie is completely focused on the business of drugs and not the effect of drugs, and I'd say drugs, but I really mean cocaine because these are both cocaine movies. This one's all about the business of cocaine, and this one is completely accurate. It's not full of shit, you know, so we're not supposed to like any of these people. It doesn't fucking ask us.
You start liking them.
Exactly. And I did start liking them, and I think it's because, like, I don't go into movies looking to like people. I kind of expect to not like people when I go into movies, but that's the thing. They didn't ask me to like them, and therefore I started liking them because they just kept it real.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, I definitely care about these people. So our next question is, do I care about what's happening to them? Do you care about what's happening to them?
Yes, but they're the consequences of their own actions.
What do you mean by that?
When you're, in this case, in the game, you should be 10 times more careful than someone that isn't. That is just a buyer.
Oh, yeah. If you're just somebody that snorts coke versus somebody that sells coke, you should definitely be more careful. I mean, you should be careful either way. Don't let the 12 fuck up your fun. Don't let the fucking boot stampers and the bootlickers that support them fuck up your good time.
Exactly. But at the same time, you know...
If you're being reckless, then you kind of bring it on yourself.
And we've seen that with Swin on his way back from the deal.
I feel like Swin could have actually benefited from sampling some of the product. Like, if he'd have thought a little bit harder and put a little bit more brain power into this shit. Like, I'm not saying he should have got high on his own supply. I'm just saying if he'd have done some kind of stimulants and put a little bit more thinking power into what he was fucking doing, then he might have been a little bit better off, because that cone shit was some bunk. That was bullshit.
Oh, yeah. And we see it right off the bat, too.
And Bright calls him on it.
Yeah, and Kyle has more street smarts than he does.
Yeah, Kyle doesn't fuck around because Kyle doesn't have any illusions about how people are in this shit, whereas Swin's kind of like, oh, you know, people are basically good. I'm just kind of just doing a little exceptional thing. I don't know what he's thinking.
And not only that, but he's like, everyone wants to be my friend.
Oh, yeah, no, everyone does not want to be your fucking friend, and that's something you really have to guard against in the fucking drug game, especially if you're a drug seller, is that, if you got drugs, everyone seems like they want to be your friend, but they do not want to be your fucking friend. They just want what you got.
Because as soon as you run out, that's when that friendship stops.
That's when that friendship is fucking over. Like, for your bro friends, it's over when the fucking, like, gravy train of product they want runs out, and for the bitches, it's over when the money run out, and when the product run out, too, depending on what kind of chick she is.
So that's what I meant by consequences of their own actions.
Most definitely. So our next question is, does it capture my interest within the first 20 minutes? Did this capture your interest in the first 20 minutes?
Oh, yeah. I mean, seriously.
Me too.
Especially when you see the guy getting thrown onto the floor. I mean, seriously.
And it was loaded with shit before that. Like, it captured my interest just because it had a quote from a real book. Like, believe it or not, I actually read like actual literature sometimes, and I was like, the Dog of the South. I've never read that. That sounds like some shit I should read. And I'm thinking about that, and before I can even finish thinking about that, he's dropping real shit on us. He's like, the thing about organized crime in the South is it's not that organized. And I'm like, by the time I heard that, I was sold. I think he said that after he put that dude on the floor, but there's so much shit just in the first like 5 minutes of this movie that I was totally fucking hooked.
Oh yeah.
By 20 minutes in, I knew I was going to finish this movie.
Oh yeah.
Which is a feat for a 2-hour movie.
Oh yeah. Usually with us, we have to pause it and come back the next day.
Yeah, most definitely. So, the next question is, do I think that the acting is good? Did you think the acting was good in this movie?
Yeah, everyone played their part well, even down to Swin's girlfriend.
I mean, straight up though, right? Because we don't usually wax over actors and shit like that. We don't fucking choose movies based on, oh, it's got so and such in it, it might be deep. We don't give a fuck about any of that. But this movie kind of hit me on that level too, because I dig Vince Vaughn and I dig John Malkovich, and with them two in a movie, even though they kind of get typecast sometimes, if you got both of them in a movie, you know that shit's gonna be well acted.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it most definitely was. So, did you like the style in which this movie was made, Danny?
Well, I've never been to Arkansas, so yeah.
Did it make you want to go?
In a way, but only because of the scenery.
Yeah, honestly, I've only been through Arkansas on the interstate, and to be quite frank, it reminded me a lot of eastern North Carolina. There's a lot of pine trees and shit.
I wouldn't doubt that, but I bet the winters up there are beautiful.
I don't know, though, because Arkansas is a little further south than we're at.
Well, they still have mountains.
That's what's up, though. You're right about that. So, yeah, no, the style wasn't particularly, fucking remarkable, but it was cool. It was good for this. I don't know if they filmed this on VHS or whatever, but like when it was in the 80s, I felt like it was the 80s.
Oh, yeah, they really did a good time period shift there.
And they did a good job of breaking it down into 5 chapters and giving us a good storyline and tying it all together without being full of shit and trying to be extra artsy and edgy and shit. Because that's my thing. I like style as long as style's not the whole movie.
Especially with the chapter book style. Usually that tends to run long, and sometimes it's not all tied together in a nice, neat bow type thing.
Exactly, and this one definitely was.
Oh yeah, especially at the end.
Oh hell yeah! Like the style should be secondary to the story for me to really like the style, and in this case, it really was, and as opposed to the opposite, where you have a horrible movie that people just like because they A, don't know anything about the subject matter, and B, don't know anything about the subject matter, and they're like, ooh, it's got people in it that I like that piece of shit I bitched about last time, Requiem for a Dream. That's a horrible fucking movie that people think is super deep and really profound because they like the style in which it's made or whatever the fuck they like about it. Fuck that movie. Anyway, so our next question is, could I watch this movie with my family? Maybe though, right?
Yeah, well, all the killings were literally almost done off screen.
Yeah, it was very discreet about the violence, and as far as I know, the sex scene between Shauna and Swin was completely implied, wasn't it? We just kind of see them in bed afterwards with like the blankets over them talking, and it kind of lets us know, like, yeah, they said they weren't gonna kiss, and here they are, like, under the covers having pillow talk and shit.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I would say a maybe.
Maybe, because families, they don't always like movies in which there's no good guys. A lot of times my family, they like to have a real clear-cut good and evil lines. They don't like stuff all the time that's just like a, like a straight up, like, this is how the world works. I know my dad often says, he's like, oh, I don't think this is realistic. They're just trying to glorify this, that, or the other. And I'm like, nah, I don't think they're trying to glorify this. I think this is just telling some real shit about how stuff really is. But, so, no, definitely a maybe, though, because, like, I actually considered watching this movie with my family, and I think even that conversation I'm imagining in my head would possibly be a good one, and there's nothing really screamingly bad about it. The worst thing that would draw me back from watching this with my family is just the general subject matter, because it's a 2-hour movie about drug dealers, so you got to consider that before you sit down and watch this with your parents or your kids or your wife or whatever, and what they're able to tolerate. But and then there's that dialogue where that weird shit that the Greek dude says about dogs, necessarily, that's kind of cringy to watch in a mixed audience.
So like I said, it's a maybe.
It's a maybe, but it's not a no.
No, it just all depends on the family and how they're raised and what they're trying to do about their kids and all this other stuff.
Yeah, and what age your family members are. Like, I wouldn't watch this movie with kids because, first of all, they'd be bored, and second of all, you don't want to answer the questions they're going to be asking. But I might watch it with, my parents, just depending. I would definitely watch this with my parents before I would watch White Girl with my parents. If I had to choose between those two, it'll be this one all day, every day.
Oh, yeah.
Most definitely.
No. Parents do not need to know about that one.
No, they don't. So, here's a big one for this one. because I had a lot of thoughts on this one. Is there a moral to this story? Let me ask you first. A, do you think there's a moral to this story, Danny? And B, if so, what is that moral?
Yes, I think there is a moral, especially, again, it's 5 chapters long, 2 hours. We get to expand for all the characters in some way, shape, or form. With the moral,
What moral did you come away with from this story?
always check your 6.
No shit. No shit. And you kind of said something earlier that everybody that wants to be your friend is not your fucking friend. And not only that, but you should be like Kyle and you should be suspicious of people that are trying to be your friend. For me, with this, I think I had a couple of morals to this story, okay? And you really can almost come up with a different moral for every character that you look at. Like, if you look at Swin, the moral of the story is don't be so full of your own bullshit, okay? Like, it's good to be confident, it's good to have swag. Those are things that'll really serve you well if you're in the business that they're in. But they can also fuck you up because he thought, oh yeah, no, everybody wants to like me. I'm just cool and I'm great. Nobody wants to fuck over a good person. First of all, when it's about that money and it's in a shady business like this, nobody fucking gives a shit.
No one does. No one really does. I mean,
about you. Don't get me wrong. They prefer a decent, easy to deal with person over a fucking asshole. But at the end of the day, they're about that money. They'll fuck over somebody. They will fuck over somebody they like
in order to get that money.
To get that money, straight up. And that leads me to the second moral, and I think this is the biggest moral of the story to me. Like, if you had to pick one overall moral of this story, I would say that the moral of this story is that if you have a hard time trusting people in general, then it might increase your anxiety a little bit to be in a business where A, it's hard to trust people, but B, at the same time, everything depends upon trust. Because there's no oversight, there's no regulations, there's no authorities. It's all about your fucking brute strength.
It's pretty much what you can bring to the board.
Yeah, and what you're willing to do to keep somebody from fucking you over.
Oh yeah.
Because he doesn't trust people, and that's what makes him good at this. But that's also what fucking like makes it hard for his life personally.
You know what makes Kyle's character ironic?
What's that?
When Bright first meets both Swin and Kyle, he tells them pretty much that neither of them have a body under their belt or cannot kill a person.
And you see that we were just talking about, is it well acted? One of my favorite little bits of acting in this movie is when Kyle pulls the gun on Bright, and Bright just kind of gets this big ass fucking smile and throws his hands up like, ooh, you got me. Ooh, don't shoot, please. He already fucking knew that they were going to shoot. He knew they had a fucking gun that they weren't going to fucking use. He probably saw that whole shit coming.
I think he also took out the bullets.
Oh, was there no bullets in that?
I don't know.
Okay, so one little critique on the style for the movie makers is I wish they had given us the fucking shot of the revolver from like dead down the barrel, because we could have seen whether or not it was loaded.
Exactly. Even with blanks.
I think he probably did take the fucking bullets out of the gun, because obviously I got the impression in that scene that Bright was guarding him and watching him the whole time. They were being watched. They were being observed for quality control at how they were going to do in that job.
Because don't forget, he says we've been watching you for a while and you failed your fucking shit.
You guys just fucked up. Like, first you put those dumbass cones on there, second you didn't put the tarp on right, and then you just pulled over and gave me a bullshit story about where you're going and who you are and what you're doing, and plus you look like assholes. You guys do not look like delivery men for faucets.
Like I said, a U-Haul would have been better.
A U-Haul would have been way better. Or at least they could have at least just worked well with what they were given, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if that was the case, if they were given the flatbed truck. First off, don't put the cones on there. Second off, make sure you have multiple tarps to cover your shit.
Well, and you really hit the nail on the head there, because the first thing they should have fucking done in that point in time was make sure that they didn't have an unsecured load, which is the first thing that's going to get you pulled over. And even though Kyle was smart enough to know that shit, he wasn't smart enough to check the shit, even though he saw that the shit already looked fucking suspect because goddamn cones on there they didn't need.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, getting back to what is the moral of this story. We got the moral about Swin, we got the moral about Kyle. Let's talk about Frog for a second and what Frog does to Almond. This is probably the biggest moral that I came away with from this story, is that if you're in any kind of illegal, in this case, victimless crime, okay? There's no fucking victim when adults are doing what they want to with their own bodies, god damn it. So I do not consider cocaine dealing to be a crime, motherfucker. Pro-choice. I'm for real pro-choice, and fuck all these people that call themselves pro-choice. You go ask the average feminist that calls herself pro-choice, hey, do you think women should be allowed to engage in prostitution? And she'll be like, oh no, I think she should be locked up because she's been manipulated by the patriarchy. So yeah, fuck all that noise and fuck all those people. Fuck them all entirely. They're not real. They don't really want freedom. They just want their ideology to be more popular. So yeah, fuck those people. But no, I don't consider dealing cocaine to be a real crime, because if there's no victim, there's no crime. So yeah, no, if you're in this kind of business, it's a legitimate business. That's my whole point about being a victimless crime. It's a legitimate business. In a way, you could almost assume that these people are heroes, because drug dealers, good drug dealers, they risk their freedom so that you can free your mind. They go to fucking subvert the evil boot stamping Nazi fucking powers that try to stop you from having the freedom that the founding fathers intended for you to have. They go around that shit. They risk prison to give you the freedom to do what you want with your mind, with your workplace, however you choose to use illicit substances. They're giving you that freedom to do it, and they're risking their own freedom to do it. So those people are fucking heroes. So it's a legitimate business, okay? And so the moral about when you're in business, this is the moral of the story when it comes to fucking Frog. Because Frog never would have done the shit that he did if it wasn't for the fact that he was making $900 so that he could make his boss $12,000 and his boss's boss fucking $38,000. Okay, so the moral of the story there, and this is the biggest overall moral of this story, I think, is that if you don't take care of your people, they will fucking take care of you. Like I said, this story is all about cocaine capitalism, but what happened with Frog is that when you don't take care of your people in a capitalistic business model, they have no choice but to revert to cocaine communism, which is where people climb up on each other's fucking backs. The only way anybody gets promoted in a communist country is you gotta fuck over and get rid of the person that's above you, and that's exactly what the fuck Frog does. Because, like I said, if Almond hadn't been so fucking greedy, if his boss hadn't been so fucking greedy, then none of that shit ever would have happened. Everybody could have ate, and everybody could have had ice, and everybody could have been straight. But because that happened, Frog had no other fucking choice. So the moral of the story, the biggest overall one that I came away with, is if you don't fucking take care of your people in the drug game, then they just might fucking take care of you. So our next question is, did this movie give you context within the first 5 minutes, Danny?
Yes, it did.
I mean, straight up, because it's like, yeah, this movie is about...
it did not hesitate with that shit at all.
Not at all, because it shows you, like, who Kyle is, and then it shows, like, the whole world in which he lives, because not only did the quote give you a little bit of, like, you know, big peripheral, cerebral context, he says it all when he says straight up, like, this is a perfect pitch for this movie. He's like, the thing about organized crime in the South is it's not that fucking organized. I was immediately interested in that, because I don't think anybody's ever made a movie about that, at least not as well as this one. So, our next question is, did this movie have an ending, or did it just quit?
It had an ending.
Because this movie's a story, right? Because it was chapters, you knew it was going to have an ending.
It ends. It ends.
It ties everything up.
But it ties everything together.
There's resolution to everything.
To everybody's backstory, really.
Yeah, and I think it was a good ending, too, you know? It was a very good ending. I'm not going to give my feelings about the ending, because I don't want to ruin it for anybody. This movie's amazing, even if the ending had been bad, and the ending was not bad, and it definitely wasn't a bullshit ending that just quit. So, number 11, Danny, is this movie, is it believable or not?
I believe it. It can be believable. I mean, the way that it's portrayed, it does look like it.
Yeah, this movie, like, just reeks of authenticity. Like, everything about this is legit, and all the way from the 80s to the present day. Like, whoever wrote this shit knew what the fuck they were talking about, and they definitely put some thought into it. I don't know if they were ever fucking involved in this industry or whatever, but they knew what the fuck they were talking about when they described it, and I really, really like that about it. So, yes, it is 100% believable. So, number 12, is there a good twist to this movie, Danny?
Oh, there's several. One of them that we, again, this is just dirty recap.
The one we talked about.
The one we talked about where the pawn shop owner or the little
guy that they sold the scooter to was our man Frog. Yeah, Frog was hiding in plain sight the whole fucking time. That was the first good one to this movie, and then it had a couple other good ones after that, for sure.
Oh, another good twist is also Kyle being actually capable of killing, even though Bright called him out on that.
Yes, that was a really good. That's two. Yeah, that was
two.
Yeah, no, definitely. That was a very good twist.
Oh yeah.
So, this is a big one for this one. Does this movie teach anything believable about life?
Several things.
Anytime you're making a movie about real shit, I'm a libertarian, and I'm not one of those fucktard fedora hat post Ron Paul libertarians. I'm that real motherfucker libertarian that's been doing this shit a long goddamn time, and I did it because it's who I am, and it's not because I fucking chose some shit that I felt like would make me popular. I definitely didn't do that damn shit. But yeah, no, it permeates every fucking thing I do, okay? And so yeah, when a movie like this, when a movie's talking about fucking like black market, gray market, agorist type of shit, I am absolutely 100% just fucking hawk-eyed for any shit that's bullshit, okay? And I was looking for fucking shit to criticize about this movie that was not believable, and I didn't find anything in this that I thought was unrealistic or inaccurate about how the Coke game really works.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you just take a step back and look at it from like a spectator point of view, I mean, seriously, it has almost everything sort of down to a letter, because like they quote in the movie, crime in the South is not organized.
That's straight up. And by the way, if you are one of our listeners and you happen to have some personal insight on the fucking Coke game or anything that's related to it, and you found something in this movie that you didn't think was accurate or whatever, let us know. Hit us up at, Amigas Movies, AM11GAS movies at gmail.com. Let us know if you thought anything about this was inaccurate. But no, please do though. But no, I didn't find anything about this that I thought was inaccurate. I thought it was 100% believable. And there's one thing in particular that really stood out to me about this that I thought was really believable about life. It's kind of subtle. It didn't come to me until after a couple of days after I was making my notes and thinking about this. But it's the fact that John Malkovich is, even though he's a park ranger, he's technically a cop, right?
Yeah.
And do you know what that teaches that's believable about life? It teaches the fact that one of the major reasons that the so-called war on drugs will never be won is because it will always pay more to be crooked than it does to be straight. There are people in the police academy right now that are only in there doing that shit because they plan to be on the side of drugs because it fucking pays more, and God bless them too. If anyone ever says all cops are bastards, remember that some of them go to the police academy just so they can help the good guys in the drug war, just like our man Bright did. So yeah, that's very believable about life, and this movie fucking laid that on us for sure.
Oh yeah.
So, I guess we're finally here. Our last one. Are you ready?
Yep.
So, Danny, would you buy or rent this movie?
This is definitely a buy for me.
Oh, I gotta have this movie, man. Like, if they made this movie on a gold-plated laser disc and I had gold-plated laser disc money, I would definitely buy this on a fucking gold-plated laser disc.
Oh, yeah. And, did we talk about the genre?
Oh, yeah. No, we didn't, but it's a drama, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely a drama. There's no doubt about this.
It's a drama for sure, and so is the next one that we have. So y'all hit us up. Thank you so much, and hit us up next week while we talk about a very modern, very stylistic, and very badass, fast-paced, in-your-face movie called Spree. Thank you guys so much. Y'all have a blessed day.
Bye.